Every story has a beginning, every family has a history. But some stories never end. They bleed through the walls, they echo in the dark, and in one house on Ocean Avenue, those echoes turned into screams. In 1974, 6 members of the DeFeo family were murdered as they slept. 13 months later, the Lutz family moved in and claimed they were terrorized by something far worse than death itself. This is no ordinary true crime case. It is no ordinary haunting. And years later, another family, the Cromartys, insisted nothing unusual ever happened, but beneath their denials lay secrets of death, silence, and fear. So what is the truth? Murder, hoax, or something darker? An evil that refuses to die? Tonight we step inside the house that changed everything. The story of the DeFeos, the Lutzes, the Cromartys, and the house that whispers in the dark. This is Timeline Unfolded. In 1965, the DeFeos moved into 112 Ocean Avenue, a Dutch colonial with white shutters, a boathouse, and the look of the American dream. But inside, that dream was rotting. Ronald "Big Ron" DeFeo Sr. ruled with an iron fist, his bursts of rage shaking the walls. His wife Louise clung to Catholic appearances, desperate to protect the illusion of perfection. Their children carried the weight of the storm. Ronald Jr., Butch, drowning in drugs, alcohol, and rage. Dawn, strong-willed, longing to escape. Allison, quiet, observant, always watching. Mark, injured from a recent football accident, vulnerable. John Matthew, only 9 years old. At church, they smiled as if nothing was wrong. But at home, every slammed door was a warning. Every silence, a storm waiting to break. And the house seemed to drink it in. November 13, 1974, Amityville slept. But inside 112 Ocean Avenue, the silence broke at 3:15 a.m. Butch DeFeo shouldered a rifle. Step by step, room by room, he turned it on his own blood, his father, his mother, his brothers, his sisters. One by one, all found face down. None cried out. None escaped. 6 lives ended, and something else began. Butch showered, dressed, and went to work. By evening, he staggered into Henry's bar, shaking, frantic. "You gotta help me. I think my mother and father are shot." Patrons followed him back. The house loomed against the night sky, silent and waiting. Inside, bodies, beds, blood. The home was no longer a house, it was a tomb. At first, Butch blamed the mob. He claimed hired killers had broken into the house, slaughtered his family, and left him alive. But when that story began to collapse, he turned his sights on someone much closer, his own sister Dawn. Dawn was just 18, a teenager with her own dreams, her own frustrations. Friends said she wanted out of the house, out from under their father's rule. She was headstrong, rebellious, but still a girl who hadn't had the chance to live her life. Butch twisted that into something darker. He told investigators that Dawn was the one who started it all, that she fired the first shots at their parents, and that he killed his siblings only in the aftermath. He even claimed he was forced to kill Dawn in a struggle after she lost control. But the evidence didn't match his story. Dawn was found in her bed face down like the others. The position of her body, the wounds she suffered, none of it aligned with Butch's claims. To blame her was to rewrite the truth, to drag her memory into the same pit he had created. And when that version of events fell apart, Butch changed again. He claimed he hadn't acted alone at all, that voices had commanded the killings, whispering through the walls, urging him on. The stories kept shifting. The lies piled higher. Reality bent and slipped away just like the house itself seemed to bend in the stories told about it. Eventually, Butch admitted the unthinkable. "Once I started, I just couldn't stop." The prosecution painted him as a violent, drug-fueled killer. The defense insisted he was insane, tormented by voices in the dark. The jury made their decision. Guilty. 6 counts of murder. 6 consecutive life sentences. Butch DeFeo would never walk free again. In 2021, he died in prison. And yet, before the end, he left one final chilling statement. There was no demon. I am the demon. But the whispers of 112 Ocean Avenue were not silenced. 13 months later, George and Kathy Lutz moved in with Kathy's 3 children. It was a bargain. Too much of a bargain. On their first day, George invited a priest to bless the home. As he prayed, a guttural voice cut through the air. "Get out." The priest was then slapped, in which he fled. The Lutzes stayed, and the house awoke. At first, it was subtle, rotting odors that seeped through rooms, doors slamming with no one near, a cold no furnace could chase away. Then it worsened. Green slime oozed from walls. George saw red eyes glaring at him from the dark, a pig-like creature watching. Kathy aged before his eyes, her face sagging, unrecognizable. They clung to routine, family dinners, bedtime prayers, the small rituals that made them feel safe. George chopped wood until his hands blistered, desperate to keep the cold at bay. Kathy tucked her children in, whispering reassurances she didn't believe. They were fighting for normal in a place that refused to let them have it. By the 3rd week, the house no longer whispered. It attacked. Beds lifted. Shadows crawled. Invisible hands pinned George down. Kathy levitated above the bed, suspended in silence. On the 28th night, the breaking point came. George later said if they had stayed another moment, something unspeakable would have happened. They fled into the dark. Food on the table, toys on the floor, clothes still in closets. The house had won, and it was waiting for whoever came next.
Neighbors recalled that months before the murders, Ronald Sr. traveled to Montreal seeking an exorcist. He returned with statues surrounding the property. When asked why, his answer was chilling. "I've got a devil on my back." But what if the devil wasn't on his back, but in his walls? And when the children moved in, they slept in the very same bed frames with
DeFeo children
died. Only the mattresses had changed. 5 months later, Ed and Lorraine Warren arrived with cameras and a full team. They had faced hauntings before, but this was different. Ed was shoved, his chest crushed by invisible weight. Lorraine saw
vision of the murders.
Bodies lying where they had fallen. In the basement, she claimed she levitated. Her warning was dire.
That I hope this is as close to hell as I'll ever get.
Their cameras captured a figure with glowing eyes from a doorway. A demon child?
Or just an investigator caught in infrared?
Decades later, no answer feels safe. On June 19, 1979, George and Kathy Lutz sat for polygraph tests. The questions were direct. Were your experiences true? Did you flee in fear for your lives? Did you levitate? Did you see flies, odors, shadows? They answered yes. No deception indicated. The machine said they believed
every word.
But no machine can measure what weighs in the dark.
On April 1st, 1977, James and Barbara Cromarty moved into 112 Ocean Avenue.
To the outside world, everything seemed ordinary. They insisted, nothing ever happened here. But silence does not always mean peace. Sometimes silence is waiting. Their teenage son David was given the same bedroom where
Butch DeFeo once
slept. The room where whispers had stirred and shadows had moved. 19 years old, whole life ahead of him. But his heart betrayed him. Attack after attack until nothing was left. 2 months earlier, Psychic warned that black magic and rituals had tainted the home. That the house itself was alive, watching, patient.
David lingered on life support, silent, unmoving.
Until Barbara faced the impossible decision no parent should ever bear. She removed him from life support. The echoes of the past had reached into a new generation. Cromartys began retreating, leaving the house empty for long stretches. They told neighbors it was to escape tourists. But in truth, they had fled more than once. By 1987, they were gone for good. But a house like 112 Ocean Avenue is never truly empty. It waits, it remembers, and it whispers still. The house on Ocean Avenue has been painted, remodeled, even given a new address. To strangers driving past, it looks ordinary, quiet, safe. But walls remember, and silence holds secrets.
The DeFeos were not just names in a headline. They were children who laughed in those rooms, a mother who prayed, a father who, despite his flaws, wanted to provide. They were a family, and they deserved more than to be remembered only as victims. Yet their voices have been buried beneath whispers of demons, hauntings, and hoaxes. The Lutzes claimed they were driven out by terror. The Cromartys swore nothing ever happened, but tragedy still claimed their son in that very house. 3 families, 3 versions of the truth, and one house that never lets go. Fresh paint may cover the stains, a new address may hide the past, but can you ever erase a place's soul? Almost 50 years later, Amityville still lingers, waiting at the end of a quiet street, watching. So ask yourself, was it a hoax, a haunting, or is something still inside 112 Ocean Avenue? Something patient, something cruel, something that never left. Would you dare step inside Amityville? And if you did, would you ever come out the same? This is Timeline Unfolded. If you were drawn into this story, like, subscribe, and comment below. Tell me what you believe waits inside the Amityville house, and what story you'd like me to unravel next.